Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with, if I could choose only one work by composer X, it would have to be work O. I don't think we've had a work O before. Well, in any case, composer X is Leonard Bernstein, and you've had many suggestions for works by Leonard Bernstein, no doubt thinking it would be kind of counter-revolutionary if you suggested something like Candide or West Side Story, which many of you have. And for that precise reason, I chose Mass. Bernstein's Mass. Oh, yes! What an amazing work this is, and a controversial one, but it is totally typical of the man. And that's the point of this exercise. Let's not forget the most characteristic work, and the one that acts almost as a sort of lodestone or seed something for everything else he did, because there is no other work by Bernstein which so encapsulates his eclecticism, that combination of American musical theater, at which he was, let's face it, one of the great masters of all time, and at the same time, his ongoing engagement with the Western classical music tradition. I mean, what more could you do to engage with that tradition than write a Mass setting? And the Mass is, of course, a theatrical piece. It is essentially a musical setting of the Mass. I mean, a musical as in Broadway setting of the Mass. And it has a plot. I mean, it does. A guy wants to celebrate a Mass, and all this stuff keeps happening along the way. I mean, that's the plot. And the stuff consists of pieces in classical formulations. It has chorales, it has choruses, but it also has street singers and pop music idioms and side things and songs. I mean, fabulous songs. I spent my life in high school with my friends going, God said, let there be light. And there was, well, I can't do it. I'll get like a copyright claim. But anyway, it's really just full of fantastic music. It's very catchy. It's also sort of cyclically organized around a couple of tunes, like the chorale, Almighty Father, incline thine ear, is exactly the same as the crazy dance that the celebrant does, everyone does, da, 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 da. You hear these things as you listen to it, the connections between the various parts. It's a brilliant work. It's a work of genius. It's amazing. And, so it gets criticized on the grounds of, well, like taste. Also, there's a sneaky kind of, covert questioning of the fact that Bernstein was extremely Jewish and he wrote a Mass setting. And so some people have considered it, perhaps as a result, a little disrespectful. I don't. I think it's incredibly respectful. I think it's absolutely based on Bernstein's universal conception of religion, of God being for everybody, and the great liturgical works also being for everybody. And I have a very strong personal relationship to the piece, because when I was in high school, I had friends who participated in the performance of Mass at Yale University that Bernstein actually came and conducted himself. And one of my best friends was in the children's choir, and I got to sneak into a couple rehearsals. It was really cool. It was really, really cool. And it was a huge piece back in the 1970s after the premiere among, high school and college people. I mean, it was hip. It was really hip. It was a big sort of classical style work that had all kinds of other things going. And we sang bits of it. There's a piece Bernstein wrote called Warm Up for choir, which he taught. I mean, he tossed everything into the Mass because he didn't have a lot of time when he was working on it, as usual with Bernstein. It was a last-minute thing. He was busy cobbling it together. And the Alleluia that we hear for quadraphonic tape, I mean, that was very trendy back in the day, sort of primitive surround sound. It has that. For the opening Kyrie and a couple other numbers. And there's a piece called Warm Up that goes do-bing, do-bang, do-bing, do-bang, do-bong, do-be-ding-dong, ding-dong, ding-dong. Oh, it was so much fun. We did that when I was in college. So if you were a sort of up-and-coming classical music interested person in the 70s, you couldn't really avoid Mass. And I'm glad I didn't avoid Mass because it's really come into its own. There have been several recordings now beyond Bernstein's own, some of which are marvelous, including Kent Nagano's and Marin Alsop. And, so the piece has been acquiring something of a life. I mean, it's a very complicated work to do and a very expensive work to do. So I don't expect it to be heard every 15 minutes. But if I had to send this to the evil god Cankrazans and say, well, if you are planning on destroying all of classical music, but for one work by each composer, consider this one, because it has elements in it that are developed at greater length in many of Bernstein's works, including huge masterpieces such as Candide and West Side Story, on the one hand, and on the other hand, the Serenade after Plato's Symposium and the First and Second Symphonies. All of this stuff is there, and you can hear it all in this one magnificent work. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.